Hello and thanks for tuning in to Space and Style. I am Olamide Onifade, your host on the show that illuminates various issues surrounding real estate, architecture, interior design trends, and much more. Today we're going to be discussing how to estimate the cost of building a home. It is very important and you should never ever underestimate that fact. And in addition to that, we have an interior designer who will be giving us some design tips. And lastly, on the artisan spot, we have, as usual, an artisan discusses craftsmanship with us. Welcome to the show. But before we go into the main part of the discussion, please stay tuned. We're going to come back in a moment. Thank you for staying with us. I am joined in the studio by architect Ladipo, a chartered architect and the principal partner of AZDEC ASC Design Consultants. He was the chairman of the Nigerian Institute of Architects, the Lagos State chapter. He has designed and supervised over 50 projects and still counting. 50 projects. And as I said before the break, he's going to be educating us on how to estimate the cost of building a home. Thank you very much for coming again.
Thank you very much.
Do you know you were the first guest on this show? And you know, so you're my go-to person.
Yes.
I said, no, I have to call her. And your swiftness, you answered me and said, I'll be there. So I'm really grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Such a short notice, and you're still here. So to going into the main discussion, where do I start from when I want to build a home?
I think first and foremost, you need to start with a vision of what you want, what kind of lifestyle you want to live. That will determine the first steps you take. What kind of a building you want, and there are so many options. Do you want a bungalow? Do you want a block of flats? Do you want a standalone building? Do you want a building that you live in also earns you money as well, so you have a lettable space in it? Do you want a mixed-use building, something you live and work with, you work in? So the varieties are there. Are you want to be part of a community? Okay. Or you want to be...
But what should inform that decision? Because, I'm sorry, I could want to live in a flat, but indeed, I should be living in a duplex. Or I might want to live in a bungalow, but indeed my lifestyle. So how do I determine what is suitable for my lifestyle?
I would say, like, you determine how you choose a car. It depends on what you want. So you might look at where you're living currently. Does it meet your needs? Is that something you are looking at, or you've seen something else that fits your needs? I once designed a house for someone who had just had back surgery, and we had to tailor the design to fit into his inability to use steps and walk upstairs, and be able to circulate around the space comfortably. I've had to do a bathroom for someone who is elderly, almost reaching the age of 80, and we had to take out all the existing bathtubs and make it a walk-in shower. And then make it sizable that if he lives up to another 10 years and he has to use a wheelchair, the space still works adequately. So these are extreme situations, but there are also situations where you need to look at your career. How much do I earn today? How long is my working career life going to be in relation to my building? How many children are going to be part of the household? Do I have relatives living with me? A lot of questions need to be asked before a decision is taken. And most people don't realize that you spend more money building a house than anything else. In fact, if you look at a house now on average, you see people buying flats for 35 million and above. If you are spending $1 million a year, you will take care of some people from childhood to their 35 years old with $1 million a year. So you see that your investment in buildings is actually much more than anything else.
It's probably the largest you ever do in your lifetime.
That's the truth. So you need to do it well, that it becomes a lasting investment.
Not where you live and in another 5 years you realize you have to move.
Yes. Or you have to pull down the building. And it's a source of worry for me today that you see some buildings, they don't last up to 20 years and they have to pull them down. And some of them are personally designed houses for clients who say this is the kind of house I want to build. They're ready to spend as much money on it. But the building is dated. It's limited to its use that any new person picking it up 10 years after probably will pull it down or, just turn it into a carcass and then remodel again. We are losing a lot of investment put into building materials. We are turning it to dust within a short period. So if you're going to do a house, make sure it's something that can last you your lifetime or you can hand over to others. And I always tell people, design what you can dispose of. That's another problem. Yes, you could need to convert your building to cash. If you build something that is not marketable, it's limited to just you and you alone.
Probably you have money at that time in your lifetime, and you decide to build a mansion of 10-bedroom apartment, 4 living rooms, 3 kitchens, 20 bathrooms. And you want to sell at some point, you have a problem. Because this is life. Life can happen.
Yes.
It's going to be very difficult
very
to sell that kind of property. But at the same time, if I have the money, I want to enjoy my life. Well, it is just one life.
Well, that's why some people would invest in things that others don't consider important, but they can afford to do it.
Okay.
But if you're starting off, you're a first home buyer. Okay. You need to be very careful. If you're a second, third, fourth home buyer, you can be flexible, you can afford to play around with what you have. But you're a first home buyer, you're going to look at things that you know you can hand over to the next generation.
So what's the role of location? Because I ask people, specialists like you, what should you be considering when you want to buy a property? And they say 3 things. And I say, what's the 3 things?
Yes.
Location. Okay.
Let me tell you, one of the most important things here in Nigeria, in Lagos, is accessibility. If you can access your building, where are you living there? So the roads are not good, you can't drive your car there, it's a problem. But I've heard of people who would live in a place where they have to park some hundreds of meters away and then walk on stones to get to their house.
I went to a property. Somebody asked me to come and see a property, wanted to dispose of it, so I'm the lawyer in charge. And I went to the property and you won't believe, on a 200 square meters, he put 2 semi-detached property building on it, 200 square meters.
Wow.
In fact, there's no parking, and both have been bought.
Well, you see,
but the location is right.
Yes, you see, when people require spaces or require accommodation, if the location is right, they will live with the limitations. Some of the smallest houses you have are in Tokyo, and there are some on slim silver pieces of land, maybe just 5 meters wide, 6 meters wide, and they put a terrace house in it.
In Tokyo?
Yes.
I thought it was Nigeria.
They're very common in Tokyo, building very small apartments.
Why? Is it because they don't
Because the land space is limited and is expensive. And Tokyo is one of the most densely populated cities in the world. You also have such buildings in New York as well. And the popular brownstone in New York can have almost 4 or 5 floors on just a width of about 6-8 meters.
It all boils down to location. Location.
Now, I have talked about Lagos because we're all vehicular-minded in Lagos. That's one.
But that was foisted on us.
Yes.
We don't have options.
Then next is security. You don't want to live where you are not safe. And I've seen people build houses and not be able to live there. Some people build houses, the streets are flooded, they can't drive to their residences, they abandon it.
Okay, just to cut you, there's this area, I won't mention it, because I don't want anybody to come and flood my timeline. There's this particular area, at a point, people were moving there, building houses, and they live, and most of them work in the other side of, Lagos. Yes. And in recent times, you know what I see?
Yes.
They abandon the homes and come to Lagos to rent what's it called, the 1-bedroom apartment.
There is that trend.
What's the essence?
You see, I think people had this perception that, I need to live in a big house on my own. So I know someone who lived way, way, way out of town, and he had a driver then, so he would have to drive from that part of town to Lagos Island every morning and back in traffic. Now, a lot of what they're doing now is that, let me give an example. He was living somewhere around Ejigbo. and he was working in Marina. So you can see the distance. Now he's built the house, and there's nothing you can do about it.
It's attached to it.
It's attached to it. But what you discover that it's a nightmare waking up in the morning to go to work and then closing in the evening. And I see some people who live in Ikorodu who have to leave around 4 a.m. They'll probably get to Ikoyi maybe around 5, and then they sleep in the office till 8. It's become a lifestyle. Some do it from the Ekpe axis to Ikoyi or VI.
But I would even take it. No, but that Ekpe axis too. I was going to say that's an option.
But then see what's happening. Ebitebete now is becoming like a hostel for workers working in the island. So you see two-bedroom apartments. You get two-bedroom apartments being built all over the place in very tight sites. Overdeveloped, but those who live in it just want to take it for just Monday to Friday.
Okay, so what other areas should you be considering?
You should consider
to amount to the total cost.
Yeah, you should look at traveling distances. There is what we call transit-oriented development, which is not something we develop here in Nigeria. Where when you build, you look at the mass transportation or mode of transportation required. So you develop based on the accessibility to urban transportation. So any building near a bus stop has higher value than one further away from it. So when you look at apartments online in the UK, sometimes will give you a distance to the nearest bus stop.
Oh, definitely. Even to
distance
schools.
to nearest schools, hospitals, train stations, and all that. So that you use as a parameter for choosing a location. And those locations are much more expensive. In fact, in every part of design, you analyze location. So even in a shopping mall, the shops close to the entrance and close to the escalators and lifts.
Or even the ones on the ground floor.
Yes, attract a higher rent. You know, if you're at a corner that people have to traverse, it attracts a higher rent. So it's the same thing with a property. You know, and then what I tell people is this: you need to plan ahead. A building takes 1, 2, 3 years to put up, but it lasts decades. So do your planning well. Do your analysis well. It's not something you rush into, because once you've converted the money into solid brick and mortar,
it's very difficult to convert it back.
You can't take it apart. You can't move it. So you need to plan it well. So look at your plan based on a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year, 30-year rolling plan. Is it a building I'm going to use for this time period? Then I dispose of it or I let it out. It brings passive income to me. Then I invest in something else. Or is this something I want to keep for a lifetime? So it's that planning that determines what you should do.
So for who determines the cost of the building at inception? Okay, you would say you're an architect, but
no,
quantity surveyors would say
I would say it's the client. He has the budget. He knows how much he wants to spend. We're just going to tell him how he's going to spend it, how best to spend it, and what he'll get for it.
So what helps me to determine my budget?
Now, let me give an example. If we're in a mortgage economy, that will be determined for you based on your income. Because the bank is going to tell you how much do you earn. This is a percentage of income that you can put aside to pay your mortgage. So that's going to limit you already. But in Nigeria, we don't have that kind of restrictive systems that will guide us. So it's left to us making a decision as a client would. So a client would say, I like this kind of house.
Okay, so that brings me to this question. You see all over Lagos, you see abandoned buildings. Yes. Halfway, 5 years, yes. 10 years. Yes. Then the property owner will return to it. What is the safety concern for properties like that?
Once you leave a building exposed to the weather, a lot of deterioration will take place. So now it depends on the extent of deterioration. In fact, a building becomes safe when you close it up. So you don't have water and moisture coming to the building. Because once you leave anything to water, water destroys it. Water will soak into concrete, corrode the reinforcement. The reinforcement will rust and exfoliate and cause the concrete to break to pieces. So you see cracks coming up. that can occur.
So do you think there should be regulation regarding that?
There
That there should be a timeline of when you must complete
and you must close up a building. If you close it up, maybe, it's closed up and, moisture and water doesn't get in, you can protect a building. It's roofed, it's covered. But once it's exposed, you see some of them with algae growing on the blockwork, and the blockwork starts to deteriorate. The plaster starts to spoil off, exposing other parts of the building. Water gets into the electrical conduit pipes, rats and other insects and rodents start, boring holes in different parts or chewing things. You are going to get a lot of deterioration. So that time frame is important, that you close up a building and you protect it. And you see, that's why you have to have a budget. So the budget, it depends on your savings, your source of income.
What about anticipated income? You might anticipate that, okay, take for instance, this building will cost me so amount of money, but in 2 years' time, I should have been able to make such money. And on the strength of that, you begin to build. That's
why you should also look at working with a professional. You can now phase your development, which is another aspect of development. We have what they call, phase development. So partial occupation can occur. So you're planning a building, you can decide to build it in phases, rather than focus on trying to finish the entire thing all at once.
And it would be habitual. You can
yes,
have it. To be habitable.
Yes. So you can design based on that. You can actually do a foundation, cover part of it, build a part of it. Foundation is still on the ground anyway, so we have a methodology of protecting it. So you simply build it in concrete, you can add a waterproof additive, you protect it. You can landscape over it, and then you open it up and continue your building much later. But you see, the planning has to be put in place. If you are expecting money, they tell you don't spend money.
You don't have.
So I think a lot of it has to do with, working with a professional who can guide you through the process. I give this example. You could start a house off and say, look, I can't afford expensive finishes, so I'm going to have a bare concrete floor. So the concrete floor is done polished, and you wax it, and you move into it. You plaster your walls, and you paint.
So what kind of design would you suggest that, what kind of designs are affordable?
Any design can be affordable. A lot of it will depend on, first, your budget. Now, I would not advise a client.
Somebody has told me about the shape of the land.
Well, yes.
Is it also a factor?
It can affect your costs, but not as significant as not planning well. I'll give you an example. If you want to build cheap, you're not going to go to a place where your foundations are going to be expensive. And it's a no-no already. Yes, the land will be cheap, but the foundation will be expensive. I've had a case where we did a geotechnical analysis of a site, and the result that came out was that we're going to do piles going 28 meters into the ground. Jesus. And they have to be 600 mm diameter.
And how much? What's the cost of the land?
For a terrace unit there, it would cost close to about 10-12 million for just the piling alone. Now, you see, that is going to be a limiting factor. Now, if we did a bungalow, we would have to, we also work at doing some piling there too as well, because the soil is so bad.
So are you suggesting
you have to sand fill? So when buying as well, to affect what will affect your budget, you've got to do all those analysis.
So I was going to say that. So are you suggesting that before you as an individual buy a piece of land,
yes,
you should do the soil test?
You should actually ask questions about the area, so you get to know generally what the topography, the soil conditions there before you go and buy. But before you build, you need to do a geotechnical test before you put anything physical on top of the land. Like if you generally ask anybody in Lagos now and you visit the place with a professional, they will look at the buildings. They will ask questions. What was used to build this building? What was required? There are things you can find out. So at least you have a general knowledge of what you're getting into. I've had a case where somebody bought a piece of land. By the time he was going to build it, it's because he couldn't afford it. He sold the land because the foundations were going to be expensive. And he didn't feel that, look, he could sustain the expenditure. So he sold it and moved on.
So that's it. So the terrain of the land is a big consideration in estimating
there might even be land that is solid, but has a differential in level that will require concrete retaining walls, which are also going to be expensive.
How do you determine that at the inception?
It's only a professional that can do that for you.
So if I'm going to build a property,
yes,
a building,
buy even a plot.
Okay,
do an inspection.
So what is your advice?
What should I do?
So I don't fall into all of this traps.
Like there is what we call the stage 0 in the plan of work when working with projects. That's when you don't even know what you want to do, and you're just talking to professionals. So you can do that.
Who should be my first person? Who should be the first person I'm calling?
Well,
an architect. I know you say.
Well, I would say an architect, but I also say an experienced person in construction.
Who could that be?
Could be anybody. It could be a builder. It could be a structural engineer. It could be a quantity surveyor. It could be anybody experienced. At least that you should have friends who you can talk to. That's stage 0. It doesn't mean you have to engage somebody.
Okay.
But people you can talk to, you can run ideas with, ask questions. It's the person that doesn't ask questions always gets lost. You go along the road and you really don't want to ask anybody and you keep on moving.
But in Lagos, you get lost.
At least if you ask for somebody who knows.
No, you know what? When I want to ask people for directions, once I stop the car and wind down, please, if he repeats the name of that area. He doesn't know it. I just.
Of course, you know that he doesn't.
Once he repeats it, you say you are going to Adade Lola. Yes. But unfortunately, we have run out of time. So I'm so thankful that you came on a very short notice, and I hope you come in again for the topic you just discussed. Well, you're still watching Space and Style. We have to go on a short break. Please stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment. Thank you for staying with us, and you're still watching Space and Style. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of the discussion with our guest, architect Ladipo. And trust me, whenever you're in the studio with him, you never want the conversation to come to an end. And I hope you've gotten a broader view of what to do when next you want to acquire a property. Coming up next is the design segment with Maureen Akike, a sales representative from ProBlind.
Hello, this is Marianne from ProBlind. I would like to welcome you to our stand that we are exhibiting in. Let me introduce the various products that we have and every person can benefit from because it's very useful and we all need it on our daily basis. We can start with the curtains. You can have different kind of curtains, sheer, main fabric or blinds. Both can be either motorized or manual. Okay, and they are suitable for houses, offices and many other places. Of course, we'll advise you to go for a blackout when it comes to conference room or to your bedrooms. Okay, this is our main part at ProBlind. Then we also do rugs. As you can see behind me, we have a normal rugs that you can pick up and you can use in your house or in your office. And plus we have those custom-made rugs where you can choose any color you want, any size, and any drawing, okay? And we just do it for you as per your request. We also have other products that we are in, wallpaper, upholstery, and many other things. We can also give you a lot of advices on colors and on what to use. And our latest line is beddings. When we say beddings, we say duvet, we say pillow, we say bed sets, and many, many other things. Thank you for visiting ProBlind and well done.
Thank you, Maureen. And to end the show this week is the Artisan Spot.
Space and Style.
Majority of these boards are imported because they are not made in Nigeria. We don't have that kind of factory yet to make those boards. So majority of those MDF, HDF boards, they are imported. Then we can cut it, then put it into different shapes that we want. Actually, one thing is that there's a kind of perspective we have as Nigerians that we believe the white people can actually do it better than us. But with this, we have the cutting machine, we have the taping machine. There's nothing different. because actually the boards that we cut here are imported from those countries, and majority of those countries now they are coming to Nigeria already to make furnitures for us here. So there is no big difference. Yeah, it's ideal that you learn it, because if you don't learn it and you just enter into the industry, there are so many things that you will not really understand about the industry. Now, what we do here, we cut and tape here. They can actually do it manually also. So, but if you actually go to a school like a furniture making school or something like that, yes, you have a better idea and a better perspective about the whole thing.
Space and style.
We have come to the end of the show this week again. My name still remains Olamide Onifade, and I must thank you for watching. Until I see you again next week, this is Space and Style.